Hey y'all, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the James Dre Show. Today I have something new. I want to do something where I start interviewing people who I find to be very interesting. And today I have none other than my beautiful wife, Miss Lateria James. So we're going to call this Everyday Heroes. And today's first episode of Everyday Heroes is going to be with the future Miss Dr. Lateria James. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The first question I want to ask you is, I want you to go into your upbringing. Like, how were you raised? Just give me some background on your upbringing.
I was raised in a two-parent household. Mom and dad both worked. Christian upbringing. Let's see. I was the only child until 6 years old. Then I had a brother, but for the most part, I could remember a lot of fun times hanging with my cousins, being around a lot of family, and just really being blessed, hanging out with my family. We'd go on vacation every summer to Orlando, and we still do to this day. But I was, really had a great childhood, raised in a great household. Like I said, with both my parents who worked. When I did turn 6, though, my mom, she did become very ill. So that kind of, shifted things in the household a little. But as far as I can remember, both of my parents, they tried their very hardest to make sure that they could provide for me and my brother.
Okay, I heard you say something very interesting. You said that you were raised in a church. And you also said that you had a great upbringing all the same. So my next question to you is going to be, what role did the church play in your early years?
In my early years, being in a holiness church, went to church on a regular, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. That was our schedule. I just remember being very, very afraid. I'm not in, as I'm older now, I realize, I don't know. But I was just very afraid. Every night I would sleep, or sometimes just listen out to see, oh my God, God is coming. He's going to crack the sky at any minute. But it was also, very encouraging as well. And very disciplined. I always wondered how my parents did it, because as a parent now with children, they were always very, very much dedicated, going to church every Sunday, sometimes 2 services or 3 services on a Sunday, every Wednesday the Bible study, Friday night service. So I always wondered how they did it, because as of now, it's just very hard to do that. We're not in the church now due to COVID, but I just always wondered, how could they do it? But I found my way to connect to God and just to stay close to Him, because you don't always have to be in the church to be close to God or to have that relationship. But it was very, very different, very different.
So before we jump in into your formative years, you said that you used to go to bed scared at times. So that made me think of a Dick Gregory interview that I watched a little while ago. And he said growing up, he was so scared of God that it took him to be a grown man to learn the true love of God. So give us a little bit deeper in depth of how what Dick Gregory said relates to your life.
Oh, wow. Because as I got older, I guess that turning point was finding out that I was pregnant at a very early age. And of course, being pregnant, going to a holiness church, your father is a minister, and just being very heavy in the holiness church, and once you find out that you're pregnant or, you're not married, out of wedlock, it's like, oh my goodness, what have I done now? I felt like I was an embarrassment to my family, to the church. But, I had to really, really get close to God and just understand that, I didn't make a mistake, or, it wasn't anything bad. It was all a blessing. And as I'm growing older and older, I just see that how that turning point just drew me closer to God, and I was able to develop a relationship and just recognize God's love and understanding that God loves me for who I am.
Wow. So you said a couple of things that we're going to get to, but I want to kind of stay on the chronological timeline. So I'm going to come back to the whole pregnancy thing and how that affected you. But so you told me how you were born Christian, both parents in the household. Let's get more in depth of that. So let's start talking about your early, let's say age 4 to 7 years, and what was that like growing up in early Branch, South Carolina?
Huh. Around that age, I could just remember just when my mom got sick. That's the most vivid memory I have of those early ages. I walked in, I believe it was an early morning. My brother, he was just born, of course, and we were all home. But I remember walking in the room to where she was, and just the floor was covered with blood, and she was just standing there, just blood pouring. And so that's what I remember, and I just remember all of those. I don't really remember what happened too much after that. I know she had to call the ambulance. My aunt came over, and probably took me to my grandmother's house. I'm pretty sure that's how it all went. But just that small, and it wasn't small, but that happening, me walking into the room and seeing that was, yeah, I could remember vividly how that happened. That's what I can remember from those ages, 4 to 7. Everything else, there's not much. I don't remember much, but that I do.
So as our generation progresses, and we have information that's more readily accessible, we've learned that a lot of things in the black community has been overlooked and swept under the rug. And one of those things happens to be childhood trauma. What you discussed just now, to me, seems very traumatic. Can you go into depth about how at those younger years that trauma was treated, if it was treated at all, or how did you learn to cope and deal with going in the room and seeing a pool of blood with your mother in the vicinity? Can you go in depth about that, please?
I'm not sure. I know it affected me because it just didn't stop there with her health. So she would get sick very often after that happened. She just had a lot of female issues going on, but I just remember every time she would get sick, I would just be like, oh my goodness, my mom's about to die. Just every time, and it was quite often she would get sick. But I'm not sure if I guess maybe I just pushed through it because, or maybe it did affect me and I just didn't realize that maybe others saw it, but I wouldn't say that it affected me as as a child. Like I said, if it did, I didn't recognize that something was wrong with me or that I needed to talk to someone. And then I'm not an emotional, it's also hard for me to express emotions or to show emotions. So maybe I just kind of pushed it in the back of my head and kept, pushing through and I know I always prayed. My prayer was always every night, God, just heal my mom. That was always a prayer of mine. Every night I just say, God, help my mom to be better. Just touch her body. Make things better for her because I just remember her being sick a lot. So